Hello, and welcome to Why I Love Warhammer, the series where I go on a bit of an unscripted ramble about why I love something in this hobby. Today is the Ultramarines, which is either going to be a really popular opinion or a really unpopular opinion to say that I love them, because they are, for all intents and purposes, the poster boys of Warhammer 40,000. The Ultramarines, Boys in Blue, Ultra Smurfs, whatever you want to call them, they are the faction that they push the most onto new players. And to be honest, I see why. So this is the faction that ultimately a Space Marine is a fairly blocky model. And so there's a lot of... And it means that for a pretty standard design of plastic and metal or resin miniature, there are a lot of different ways you can paint them up. So that makes them a good entry point to the hobby. You've got a model, you have a colour, a trim, some highlights, and some shading, eyes, weapons. It's a lower barrier to entry than, say, the Drukhari Dark Eldar. It's a lower barrier to entry than certainly Imperial and Chaos Knights. Also, they're super soldiers, but they are to a certain extent human, which means that as a new player, you can play as a faction that you see yourself, in which you see yourself somewhat, because they're your team. And even though there are no good guys in 40k, the Space Marines are the protagonists. Also, from that painting side of things, the Ultramarines being blue means that it's like an obvious colour that's bright. It's often associated with the good guys in a lot of how we see things, kind of blue and green, and so it kind of gets that painting side of it in, and it just makes things look very striking across against kind of the green or the brown or the grey battlefields. So from that kind of meta standpoint, it does make a lot of sense for the blue ones to be the protagonists. I didn't say heroes, the protagonists. From a lore perspective, Robute Guillliman, or Robute Guillliman, or Robert Guillliman, whatever you want to call him. I'm going to call him Guillliman because it just feels less memey just to refer to him by his surname. His whole shtick was organisation and bureaucracy, which from a top-down army-level game where you're making all these decisions, it makes sense from that immersion standpoint of directing them with strategy. Like, you are Guillliman before they brought him back. So I like them from that standpoint as this faction to kind of begin and master the game. And they're not a bad army. That's the other thing, is you do get some things. So if you play Super Smash Brothers, Kirby is a character that is always viewed as very mid-tier, but is a brilliant character to learn the game with, because it's got a lot of stuff to help Kirby recover. It's easy to use. It's it's simple to learn. Ultramarines are what if Kirby were A tier. They are good. You learn the mechanics of the game, but they play well. They do well. They've got really good synergies that mean that models become units and combinations that become amazing to use. So yeah, from that perspective, Ultramarines are brilliant. So let's start going through some of my favourite models in the range, starting with Robute Guillliman himself. He's got the Emperor's Flaming Sword. He's got this huge glove with the chain-fed gun there. The gold trim is suitably intricate and overboard for a setting as overboard as Warhammer 40,000. Also, just taking a quick moment to appreciate the fact that the Ultramarines are the protagonists, but they're the 13th Legion, which is the unlucky number. This guy's got 13 just here in Roman numerals. It's just cool. It's interesting. I like what Guillliman represents in the lore. Is him coming back as a kind of move the story of Warhammer 40,000 along a little bit. So it's still 10 seconds to... It's still 10 seconds to all out end of everything. But it's just moved on a little bit. As much as I like the fact that that 40k is often this placeholder setting where everything is 10 seconds to midnight, it's nice to have a bit of progression with the story, even if it doesn't change how close things are to everything. So Guillliman coming back, I love that. It means that we have the Inari being a thing, which means we get Yvraine, who I really like Yvraine, and mostly the fact that she has the cat. I like that it adds more unity between the Eldari and the Imperium. I enjoy that him coming back also meant that more Primarchs could come back. We got that, we got Magnus the Red, we got Mortarion, we got that amazing sculpt of Lionel Johnson that came back. And Guillliman was the herald of that power scaling. And he's not overpowered. He's about 350 points the last I checked. So he's not insane. I mean, he's still a good chunk of your army if you're playing a 1,000-point game. But it still works. And so I just think he looks really cool. He's also... There's a bit in one of the novels where he has a bit of a sense of humour, which was something sorely needed in the setting. That it's a funny game. It's over the top. It's a satire. So having some models that have a sense of humour about themselves is important. That levity contrasts the rest of the universe and enhances the setting. It's more of a thing with the Chaos Primarchs, but one thing that is fascinating with the Imperial ones, the Loyalist ones, is to compare them to their 30k selves. So this is the same character, but 10,000 years in the past. Far more of the Roman consul thing. He's got his own sword, not the Emperor's sword, so it's far less over the top. The essence of the character is there, but this one seems a bit more dignified. And again, I'm a sucker for the Horus Heresy character diorama stands, and this marble I think is beautiful. And there's something just very regal and dignified about this Guillliman. This is a Guillliman who's leading from the back, who's got the organisation down, whereas this Guilliman's leading from the front. And they're both leaders. They both have it down, but there's something to be said for both versions of the characters. Next one is classic Space Marine troops in the classic Ultramarines colours. Again, it's a lovely entry point. It's blue, black in the recesses, gold trim, paint up the weapons, and that's and then add the details. It's a good entry point, and they pop. That's one thing with the Ultramarine colour scheme, is it really pops on the page, it really pops on the battlefield. And I almost feel like they're underrated because people don't talk about them much, because they're the poster boys. But they do deserve some of the hype, and they are cool models. And when you got the helmets, again, I do prefer the beaky helmets to these helmets. The Orcs call Space Marines beakies, which makes more sense with the older beaky helmets. Again, I'm not such a fan of painting skin, so wherever possible, I don't have an unhelmeted model. But they're just a good classic model that they, stomping about the field, these 11, 12-foot super soldiers. When I was a kid, teenager, playing this game for the first time, I never understood why any model would only ever have one gun. I thought, you can always give them two, and that's surely better. Then I played paintball for the first time, only having the one gun, and I didn't exactly feel like I would have done better with two. I felt like I needed two hands for that one. And then factor in that lore-wise, these aren't just machine. Yeah, these aren't like just weapons that we have on this planet. These are giant things that where each one bullet is the size of, depending on who you believe, a can of Red Bull or a brick. They are powerful things. Two hands is required, even with all the enhancements that Ultramarines get. Sometimes it feels like they need the plot armor just to handle the weapons. Again, more classic Space Marine sculpts. I think these guys look cool. There are pros and cons to the way in which they implemented the Primaris Marines, but if you can kind of put some of those weaknesses in how they're introduced aside, I do think they're awesome looking models. Sneezing. Edit out the sneeze. And yeah, there's just something good to be said about them. They're interesting models. They look good. They've got their place in the tabletop. And I enjoy that these ones get painted up with a bit of grime as well. There's a bit, you can add depth to them, they're not just cartoon characters. Terminators, big, chunky models, going down the battlefield. That's awesome. This what if we took the walking tanks and made them tankier? Jump pack troops, again, these are walking tanks, and these ones are like hovering down the field. That's something incredible to me. And again, they look cool. The classic jetpacks, I know they're jump packs, they don't spurt fire, but in a sci-fi setting, you want jetpacks. Jetpacks like old school futuristic, and the Ultramarines get to have them. I mean, I know all the Space Marines do, but because Ultramarines are the poster boys, it means everything. So much Space Marine stuff is in Ultramarine colours, which made it fit this video for loving the Ultramarines. They're like everything that Space Marines do, Ultramarines can do. They're kind of the jack of all trades, master of none to a certain extent. So yeah, I do love the jump pack Marines. I just think they look awesome. Also, I like the fact that there are different ways of painting them to denote rank. So red helmet on the blue is a different rank to blue helmet on the blue. Marneus Calgar, chapter master of the Ultramarines, the head honcho before Guillliman came back. I think the power fists are awesome. B, there's a scene in a comic where he straight up goes to a Lord of Skulls and just rips the head off. And I know it makes him just seem so badass and awesome that it's just incredible. He's like stepping on a demon thing here, which I think is amazing too. The cloth, which beautiful to paint up. He's got guns on his hands. Just everything about Marneus Calgar is just badass. And he deserves a lot more respect than I think he gets. And again, since Guillliman came back, he's kind of been shunted off to the side, I think. But he deserves a lot of respect, and he's just a really cool character. Again, his text-to-speech device variation, I think, was also a lot of fun. Kind of being very jaded by it all, understanding that the Ultramarines are the poster boys and protagonists of the setting. And so, yeah, I like that characterization, but I also like him in the non-fan works. I'm skipping over these guys. Blade Guard, I think, again, they've got shields, they've got a lot of character to them, and they're just cool looking models. They're big, they're chunky, and they look cool. I like I like the sword and shields they get. Yeah, fun models. Okay, the Centurions. Again, blame text-to-speech device for my love of these things, because I find them kind of cute. They're kind of this halfway house between Terminator and Dreadnought, and I just think that looks fun. I'd love to get one of these to make into the TTS Rogal Dawn, and with these being kind of ultramarine colours, they belong here just so that there's a place that I can talk about them being cute and being cool and interesting. It's Space Marine playing dress up, and that's fun, and that's what we should be focused on. We should be focused on the fun. Okay. Next is the lieutenant. It's meme of, is this a new Primaris lieutenant? They released a lot of them. Actually, this one's the captain because he's got the thing at the top. But again, they're just good-looking models, and the different ranks have a lot of that structure in place that's so important to the Ultramarines. So yeah, this guy just needed a bit of time to shine in the spotlight. Phobos armor one, again, I love that pose. To me, it looks like he's just jumping off. He's about to lurch into the field of combat. I think that looks really cool. This smoke coming off, it's so action-packed, this mini. And there's just so much going on. It's almost like a diorama in itself, this model. And I just think that's something just worth praising. Okay, chaplains, they don't wear the colour scheme for their army, but they still look cool. This skeleton face, this halo, the skull beat stick I think is incredible. These purity seals, just incredible. And he's holding and the guns look cool too. The servo skull with the imperial wings. It's just, the chaplain's just really fascinating to me. The morning I filmed this video, I was watching a comedy short, kind of taking the mickey out of the bit up here. But I love the flying vehicles, I love the flying stands, and I love that it's kind of like a tank meets aeroplane. It's a silly model, but it's a fun one. And I like the idea of, you could easily have a story, some kind of novel, where these three are talking on their downtime about, what they did in the last battle, what they want to do for the next one. And just, you get a sense of camaraderie with teams like this. And I think that's something that's underrated in the setting. Also, I like the missile pods. It's just fun. Vindicator. I don't know why I think this model's so fascinating. It might be this digger thing here it's got at the front, this front gun. But I think I just have a soft spot for kind of blocky square models that you could stack on top of one another. There's something about the user transport for that appeals to me. And with Ultramarines being as kind of clean cut as they are, also organisation. Why wouldn't you want your things to be able to stack in a highly organised system? So yeah, I'm a bit of a sucker for the Vindicator for that reason. The Brutalis Dreadnought, again, it's got a claw machine hands, and I think Dreadnoughts are fascinating anyway, being these kind of walking coffins to let a Marine serve even in death. I just think it's a really cool model, and just this thing lumbering up the field and just skewering stuff with the claws is a fun and scary image. Okay, last one, more of a classic Dreadnought. What can I say that I've not already said? The Dreadnoughts are cool, and what they are lore-wise are cool. I enjoy the kind of blockiness of them, and they're just fun models. So yeah, that's going to take us to the end of the video. So yeah, for why I love Ultramarines, I love their lore. They feel like they need more love because people hate on them for getting too much love. They're poster boys for a reason. I love their protagonist nature. I love the lore around them. I love how versatile they are. I love the structure of them. Yeah, there's a lot to love with Ultramarines. What can I say? And yeah, so we'll end the video there. If you want to give this video a like, subscribe, that'll be brilliant. If you want to, common question of the day: what is your Warhammer opinion that you think might be too popular to express in most online forums? Yeah, what's your popular Warhammer take? So that's the current question of the day. If you want to, if you want to check out the Patreon, that'll be really appreciated as well. And with that, see you guys in the next video. Hope you have a great day.